this. I haven't done this in a while where I told a story. So I'm going to do that in this drive to work, as well as talk about the video I just put out, the one I just recorded. The part I want to talk about in it is the recency bias and confirmation bias stuff I talked about. So guys, recency bias and confirmation bias are gambler, craps player, any kind of gambler. They're really terrible. They're bad things to fall into. They're bad habits to fall into. Hello, Victor. If you get caught up in either recency bias or confirmation bias, you're fooling yourself. It's a shield over what you know to be true. It's a shield over what you know to trust on the craps table. All right, guys. So here's something. Okay. So some of the stuff that I use in my craps, game, in my craps, the style I play, some of it is recency bias based. All right. Or not necessarily, but you could look at it that way, okay? And I'm going to talk about frequency plays, okay? So, for example, if you roll 2 7s, I don't think you're going to roll a third, and I'm talking about 2 7s in a row. I don't think you're going to roll a third one in a row. I don't. That's a recency bias. I just saw 2. The likelihood of you rolling a third in the row is 16%. Divided by 16%, divided by 16%. All right? So that's the likelihood of it, all right? So there is math backing that recency bias play. Now, when it doesn't roll, let's say 2 7s in a row and then you roll a 10. Now that's confirmation bias. I just saw it happen, so I confirmed what I thought. That's different. That is not what I'm talking about. That right there, that is based in math. That it is based in a trend on numbers that say that most likely you're not going to have 3 7s in a row, and there is math backing it. All right, it happens very rarely. No matter. Okay, so then there's the second side of that. All right, where if that third 7 does show. I hear this a lot. See, I told you it happens all the time. No, it doesn't. It doesn't happen all the time. Can you have it happen to you where a third one will show? Yes, you can. Absolutely. But it does not happen all the time. That is recency bias. That is confirmation bias in the negative version. All right? You can have it positive. But in this case that I'm talking about is based in math. It's based in probabilities, right? It actually has value. Now, I'm going to talk about the confirmation biases and recency biases that I think are super dangerous. I talked about them in my video that I just put out. And that is dice control, recency biases and confirmation biases. All right? In dice control, if you see someone do it and you're just like, man, look at that. The first thing people always say is, what set are they using? That's the very first thing people always say. What set are they using? Well, that doesn't even matter, guys. Most likely the set is not even mattering. The huge majority of the time, at least one dice goes super crazy. And so it's still a 16% chance to roll a 7. All right? The first thing I always hear is, man, what set are they using? Guys, honestly, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And you can prove this to yourself. You know, if you set the dice as an all 7 set and you stay on axis, you should roll more 7s. And that's true. If you stay on axis, you should roll more 7s with the all 7 set. But I am willing to bet that if you film yourself doing the all 7 set, the 3B or the hard way, I bet you the 7s same rate, and I bet you it's 16% over the course of 1,000 rolls, or it's very close to that. I bet you don't get any different out of the all 7 set as opposed to the hard way setter. And guys, because honestly, the set doesn't really matter. Not in my opinion, it really. What matters? Okay, so because guys, there's 6-sided cubes. Okay, so there's only a few ways you could adjust the dice that take away something. All right, and that's only if you stay on axis. Or in hard way set, as it's concerned, if you stay on axis with one and off axis with the other, it's hard to roll a 7. And that is all true, right? But you have to get those direct results, right? The truth is if you pick the dice up on the 2, 6, 1, 5, that's probably just like a 3V. It's probably, if you look at the dice, it's probably very similar to a 3V, or just like it if you just turn the dice over. So there's only a handful of sets. And George from CY can explain this to you, that really all the sets are what he calls sister sets of each other. There's only like a couple groups that it even falls into. All of them are kind of sister sets. Right, okay, absolutely right, Victor. So, yes, so you're going to have to influence the dice. So what happens with dice influencers for the most part, and I'm not saying all of them because I've watched George from CY consistently be really good. And so there are people that can do it. All right, there's definitely people that can actually influence against the 7. And it does happen. But it's very few. And as far as I know, I only know one personally, and I only know him through YouTube and phone calls and stuff, but it's George. I don't know anybody else that I feel like is actually defeating the 7 when he throws the dice. And George doesn't even do it all the time, but he does it enough of the time that I would put my money behind it. So I definitely would gamble on George. So, but there are other people that, I mean, it's confirmed that they can do it. Lots of people have seen it. Dave from Same Bet says those guys at Golden Touch are the real deal. And I trust Dave. Dave from Same Bet has zero reason ever to lie about anything. And he's probably the most honest craps guy out there. So, and he has his show. So if you guys haven't seen Dave's show, go check out Dave from Same Bet. He's cool, man. He brings on all kinds of guests on his show and stuff. He's awesome. But even I got lucky enough to have an interview by him. So Dave's a cool guy. Give him some of your time if you can. But back to this recency bias and confirmation bias. All right? It is super dangerous for craps players based upon the idea that if you think you're controlling the dice. Now, on the other side of this, I do think you can control the dice to avoid other numbers. And by other numbers, I mean the 10, the 4, even the 5 and 9, I think are controllable to some point. And the reason being is because the 6-sided cubes, you can adjust them and you can consistently throw good enough to defeat their average because you have less ways to roll them. Hey, Andrew. You have far less ways to roll them. So I do think it can work on other numbers. I just don't think it can work on the 7, not for enough people to matter for the big majorities. But does that mean that you shouldn't try it? No, you should. Honestly, guys, when people just grab the dice and throw them down the table, it's actually far more difficult to play with. When you have a guy that's setting them and trying to throw them, that gives you a rough gauge on how they're going to do. All right, because most dice controllers are never going to do better than about 10 rolls, even if they're good. All right, even if they're good at it, it's never going to be more than about 10 rolls. So it's a lot easier to gauge them than it is the random guy, because the random guy's random. If he's just throwing them down there, I mean, it could go 2 rolls or it could go 200. I mean, it's much, much more difficult to gauge. So, I actually like playing with people that are trying to set the dice. They're trying to manipulate the dice, because that gives me a pretty boxed in average that I think they're going to fall into. Now, sometimes I get surprised and they'll go 20 rolls, but most of the time they don't. Most of the time they land around 4 to 8 rolls, and it's just the nature of the game. And I trust that, and I trust that I know that. And even if I just saw a 20 roller back to back, I still think the next guy is going to go between 4 and 8 rolls. Andrew, that's actually that what you're saying right there. I can't remember what university tested that, but they put the aces on top, and they actually found that exactly what you're saying does influence and gives you, with the aces on top. Now, I think you could put any numbers on top, but what they did is with the aces on top, and it was really low trajectory, very little energy in the dice, and they actually got skewed results. But they still didn't beat the 7 average in that. I can't remember what university did that. Guys, there's been a bunch of universities try to see if dice control works, and most of them are inconclusive. Most of them are inconclusive findings. But a few of them have showed one way or the other. Again, guys, the more velocity in the dice, no matter what you tell me, the less control there is. And low and flat, guys, is actually the throw that the casino bans people for. That's actually a cheating throw, because they're worried about you sliding the dice and just getting them to tumble head over feet, So that's actually the only throw that you can get in trouble for, is to do that. That really low. Now, that's if you slide them across the table. That's why they want you to pick them up off the table. They don't want you to slide them across the table, because you could slide the dice. Someone could get good enough at sliding the dice. And that's actually a thing. There's actually been people, get kicked off tables for it. That's actually a real thing. It's an old way to cheat craps. It doesn't happen very much anymore. It's super difficult. And obviously, if there's anything in the way, it affects it. Sure. But so back to confirmation bias. So this is what I see a lot of. Guys say, man, I've been practicing, and my SOR or SRR is up to 10 or 12 or 13. Man. And then I'm like, so first question I ask is, okay, how many shots did you take? Oh, I've about 200 shots. That's not enough. It's not enough. All right. And Andrew's a math guy, guys. He's educated in mathematics, so that's craps down under. He can tell you that, guys, standard deviation on the 7, just the 7 alone, is very wide. It's gonna push you to nearly 9. Yeah, that's right. It's gonna push you that far out. So if you're not controlling the dice better than 9 throws, you're not even beating the standard deviation. So, and I don't know if you know what standard deviation is, but Andrew I know does. So with just 1 sigma away, that's like 30% each way, a little over 30% each way. You have to get past 9 rolls, basically, to even be thinking you're doing anything right. You have to average more than 9. It's not more than 6, guys. And that's the thing, because literally random could average 8 rolls all day long. Okay, so awesome. So even just 1 deviation, which is still random, essentially, you're starting to push those rolls way out. Guys, most people don't roll 9 times. That's just the truth. Most people don't go nowhere near 9 times on average. It just doesn't happen. Now, there's instances at the table where you might see it 5 guys in a row. But the huge majority of people, nope, they land between 4 and 8. It's just the truth of the game. The truth of the game is lands between 4 and 8. That's how it goes. But anyway, I love having you math guys because you guys help. Because sometimes I don't fully understand the math. I only understand parts of it, but you guys always end up helping me out, so that's awesome. So, like, this is one I've heard a lot of. Well, man, my SOR or whatever is only about 7. And it was 7 when you started. You could just... That should be a clear indication that it's probably time to not worry so much about the shooting and worry more about the betting. I'm about to run into this bad spot, guys, where I'll lose you guys for a while, probably. But anyways, I just wanted to tell people and talk about how dangerous confirmation bias and recency bias is in gambling. All right, guys, this is a super slippery slope. All right, if you start believing something based on short-term results, and you math guys, I know you're going to back me up as, you start believing something on short-term results, it's dangerous. It's super dangerous because you haven't given it a chance to do something different. You haven't given it that chance to see a natural change that's coming. And so I think that gets a lot of players in trouble. And you got to be mindful of that, guys. Craps is also a mental game. It is not just throwing the dice down the table and putting your money out there to gamble. It's actually, there's mental parts of it. You have to keep yourself mentally sharp. Mad? I'll have to check that out, Andrew. I've never even heard of that. But you're exactly right, Victor. And that's why, guys, that's why I don't preach dice control. I do like it, and I do think it's fun to do dice control. I absolutely do. That's why I practice it and I try it. And when it succeeds, I'm happy about it, and I act like I did something. And when it fails, I'm happy about it because it doesn't bother me in that past that. But that's all recency bias stuff for me, or a confirmation bias. When I'm shooting a 1-2, 1-3, and I roll a aces or a 3, and I'm happy I won that front line don't winner, And then when I turn right around and I throw 11 or a 7, I'm like, oh yeah, then we're on the dice too. And what I'm saying is that, I can easily roll all those numbers. And that's what I'm saying is, I'm not necessarily saying that my dice control caused it or didn't cause it. What I'm saying is that, yep, that's part of it too, So dice control is more of the fun of the game to me as opposed to the actual mechanism for winning. And that's why I always preached that dice control should always be secondary to a strategy. Always. It should always be secondary. And maybe even less than that. It should probably be the third or fourth thing you're looking at. Because, guys, honestly, discipline and strategy will get you far further than dice control ever will. Discipline and... Thank you. Yeah, it's all discipline and strategy. Believe it or not, guys, you really don't even have to have a ton of strategy if you have really good discipline. If you have super good discipline, you could play very simple bets with very minimal strategic moves involved in it, and be super successful if you're just really disciplined. So like if you go on my website, you go down to my blogs I've written, There's one about my like 10 things for craps players. And number one, guys, is discipline. It's absolutely number one. Number one is discipline. That's right, greed gets in the way. Or sometimes people's pride gets in the way. When people's dice control isn't working, their pride gets in the way. And they're like, I need a 20 shot. Gotta have a 20 shot happen here. You know? Man, just worry about getting 3 shots and then make some money on it and then move on. But again, that greed, man. And also, recency bias usually kicks in. And it's obviously, guys, this has happened to me on many occasions. I'm not so bad anymore, but I used to be really bad about it. Where recency bias, I just saw, you know, that's right. Yeah, to go from one bad thing to another, that quicksand, you know, you see, you had a big bet out there and it gets knocked off. Bam. Well, guys, that big bet was a bet, you know, it was a wager. It doesn't mean that you should freak out and throw all your money in the field. That's why, you know, and I preach the basic strategies a lot of times, being very basic, being very simple. And the reason is guys, because simple works. Simple works. You don't have to be super complex. You don't have to be overly complex. Simple works. Super complex is hard to deal with. When you're getting super complex, that means you have a lot of what I call moving parts. And that means that if you miss one thing, you've changed everything you're doing. And that's why I try to stay very simple. Sure. Yeah, that would probably help with people's tilt. If you were really, but that's discipline. To do that, you'd have to be really disciplined to drop down. Yeah, it would probably help with tilt. Because if you did lose the next one, it would feel less painful because it was less money. You know, it's very recent. Recency bias is a huge problem. Confirmation bias is a huge problem. And that's what I'm preaching about here, guys. And I just want people to understand that there's a reason that certain things work and certain things don't work. And it all has to do with the numbers. It all has to do with the math behind the game. That's it. It really has zero to do with people setting a 3D and throwing perfect throws. It really has far less to do with that than it just has to do with just. So when you see, let's say you see, you know, an 8 roller, all right? And then right behind it you see a 9 roller. And then right behind it you see a 6 roller. And then you see another 8 roller. Guys, that table isn't high. That table is in the average. It's just sitting in the average. But if those numbers all landed in the boxes, if those are all box numbers, it's going to have the appearance that table is just really hot. You know, it's only hitting in the box numbers. Everyone's winning money. Guys, that's strategy. That's all about betting. If you weren't betting the box numbers, you wouldn't have been winning money. You know, like my wife the other day, when we were at the casino, she had like a 30 plus roll. It was awesome. And she's just, we're on the dealer side hook on a 14-foot table, and she's just throwing them down there. All right. So, but she hit the 5, repeatedly hit the 5 as a point, and kept hitting the points on that 5. I have most of her points made. She made like 7 points. Most, like 3 or 4 of them were 5s. All right. Does that mean that the 5 is hot? No, it just means that's what happened on her throw. Because the next throw she threw, she didn't throw 5s, you know. The next guy, he didn't throw a bunch of 5s, you know. she did have an amazing roll, and obviously I was betting for her, so I don't bet the don't on my wife, because now sometimes on my videos I do, but live I don't, because she just doesn't. She rolls points and stuff frequently enough that I have enough recency bias, enough confirmation bias that I don't bet against her, or I don't bet her for the don't. I usually just play 110 inside on her and then press from there, because my experience with her is that she's gonna roll some rolls and we're gonna make some money. My wife is actually and I'm gonna use the word lucky. I don't usually use that word because I don't play with luck myself. I don't believe I get lucky when I win at the craps table. I believe that my time I've spent at home and practice and learning strategy and learning the numbers of the game, I'm not getting lucky when I go there. So with her, it is a little luckier because basically I'm just doing a very simple betting style and then just pressing from there. So it's kind of just faith that she's going to hit some numbers. But again, guys, if she rolled and point seven out 3 times in a row, it would never bother me, because I'd be like, yep, that's just part of it. Yeah, she had a 30 roller and then 3.7, that's probably about right. That's going to put her right close to that average. If 8 or so, and yeah, sure, 7, 8, yeah. Why wouldn't it be? That's how it goes. But guys, just remember, I totally agree, Andrew. The hardest thing to deal with is shooters that have wasted rolls. And by wasted rolls, I'm talking exactly what you're saying, is rolls that don't hit the numbers you're betting. So if you're only betting inside, and they're only hitting 4s and 10s and horn numbers, but they roll 7 times, that sucks. Because you were out there for 7 rolls, and in your mind, the math says you should have won some money, but you didn't. And I hate that. Exactly right. You're right. Quality is so much better than quantity in craps. The quality of the rolls is so much more important than the quantity of the rolls. Now, if you're betting every number, it's not as big of a problem. Like if you're playing like an iron cross or something, because you are going to win on every number. But guys, the one bad thing about the iron cross is that on the 5, 6, and 8, you get a diminished return. All right, and I've never really talked about that, but it does factor in. And I know you math guys know this, that the big negative of the iron cross is the field part of it, because the field takes away from the 5, 6, and 8, and that. No, they get evicted. Yeah. But so that's one of the major issues with the iron cross. It's really not rolling 7s on the iron cross, because that's going to come. The problem with it is the field taken away from the 5, 6. You're going to roll so many of the 5, 6s, and 8s that you're going to get a lessened return. So you're not getting a positive payout on it, which is the idea of the place bets, is that you do get a positive odds payout. So that's the one issue with the iron cross that doesn't get talked about very much, and even I haven't really talked about it, and I need to make a video on that probably. But because, so right, and that's the big issue, guys, because the 6 and the 8 by themselves are pretty good bets. Because they get that positive payout. They're going to win more than they lose when you win. So versus loss. So they're pretty good. When you add the field in, you actually take away from them. You actually take away from their value, because even if you play like a 3-to-1 cross, you still take away enough of their value that they're dangerous. It starts getting, that 7 starts being a really, really, really ugly. But what you gain by it is you gain all the probability of the game. So you gain all the other numbers. And so it's a trade-off. So the Iron Cross guys, if you're going to play Iron Cross variations or styles, you have to be very disciplined. You have to be a disciplined player, because you should be on a pitch count. You should be only throwing a few rolls at it and then getting your money off the board. But that's why I prefer to play it from the don't, especially when I have one of those numbers as my don't number. And I made a video about that, because it cheapens the Iron Cross. It makes it so you have less at risk against the 7. And also, because now, you know, you're playing like let's say the point was 5, so you have a don't 5 covering your place bets. So it kind of takes away the problem. That's an awesome play, Andrew. I like that play myself. Yeah, you don't always have to put that 5 out there. That 5 definitely takes away from a little bit of, I'm going to use this word, the house edge. When you're playing the Iron Cross, if you leave it off, it definitely helps with that. But guys, don't be afraid when I'm sitting here breaking down strategies and stuff with you guys. Obviously, if you're not just really in tune with the math, don't be afraid to play them. Most of the stuff on the craps game can win. I mean, most strategies can win. It's not, it's not. Iron Cross has been around forever because it is effective. You gain all the numbers except for one, whichever number you choose not to gain. So it is effective. Just like 96 across is effective. It takes other parts of your craps game to make them efficient. They can be effective and they can win a lot. You put 96 across, you have a ton of combinations to win. So yeah, you're going to hit winners, but you have to be disciplined to turn your bets off or take your bets down after you have a few winners. Otherwise, that 96 across, it won't defeat its average it needs. It won't defeat the 5 hits it needs. Yeah, that's right. So, and I know I've just jumped over to 96 across, but I've made videos on this. But it takes 5 hits on 96 across to cover what you have out there. So, you have to expect the shooter to hit the box numbers 5 times. And that's a little more difficult. You're getting in that range where it's not a good play at that point, where you're taking it too far. But if you're only trying to do 96 across and only make 3 hits or 2 hits, now you're in a much better situation. The likelihood of that happening goes up significantly if you're just trying to make 1 or 2 or 3 hits, even 1 hit. Anytime you're risking less chances to lose, it's going to do better. So again, it's one of those situations where you just got to have discipline. You got to be disciplined. And all those are like that. Any cross betting strategy is like that. It has a certain number of rolls it takes before you're playing without risk. They all have a certain number of rolls they take. Now, and I'm talking about if you just leave it up there. Now, if you move your bets around or take them down or turn them off, now it doesn't. The amount of rolls is only based upon how many rolls you want to roll before you turn off. If you want to go 1, so the risk is only 1 roll then. If you want to go 10, now you're getting into that range where that 7, it should naturally show up. And again, guys, be mindful of what you're doing there. Keep that biases out of your head, them confirmation and recency biases, keep them out of your head. Trust the math that you've developed at home, or developed, whatever system it is you play, whatever ideas you have on the craps table are fine. All of them are good. So just trust it. Don't let the outside influences affect it. Trust what you know, trust what you do, and be disciplined, and you'll be successful. And guys, I'm talking about any style of player. Hello. I'm talking about any style of player this works. If you want to be a light side, dark side, hybrid player, if you're one of those guys that just plays the 6 and 8, all those are great. They're all fine. All those strategies will work. It's based on discipline. How disciplined are you to make them work? Are you willing to take one hit and go and turn off? Are you willing to take 2 hits and turn off? All these things help you become a better craps player. They're going to make you more profitable if you'll stay disciplined. And guys, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest part of winning, is just discipline. It really boils down to that. Now, obviously, you want to know the math of the game. That's a huge part of it too. But if you know the math of the game already, and you already understand what you like to do at the table, what you're comfortable with, then it's just discipline. Does that mean you'll never lose? No, it does not mean you'll never lose. Guys, sometimes the dice just go wrong. I mean, even if you're controlling them or whatever, sometimes they just go wrong. Sure. Guys, Andrew's giving out good information there, so if you don't know that stuff, you need to be paying attention to that. Variance is very wide in craps. You are absolutely correct. Hey guys, okay, so I'm gonna jump over to college football and pro football really quick. Monetary acts of physics. That's hilarious. I thought you said monetary. You said momentary. Monetary acts of physics. I like monetary acts of physics because that describes craps. Monetary acts of physics. So in college football and pro football, okay, and now I'm going to just take Division I college football and pro football. I'm going to tell you why I only bet on pro football and I don't bet on college football. It's variance. It is variance. Okay, so in college football, the variance is about 60 plus points, between 60 and 70 points between the very best team and the very worst team. In pro football, it's much smaller. It's around 20 points. All right, so the variance in pro football is a third. That's a t-shirt, that's right. Is a third of what it is in college football. So that's why I stay away from college football. The variance is too big. It's too wide. In pro football, the teams do the same things over and over, and the scores stay very similar. So it's just like craps, okay? Guys, there's only 36 outcomes in craps. That's never going to change. There's 36 things you can roll and 36 ways to roll them. That's it. There's no difference. It's not going to change tomorrow. There's not going to be 37 tomorrow. There's not going to be 50 tomorrow. It's only 36. That's it. So you know that, okay, in this square, the huge majority of stuff should happen. You know that. You can say that definitively because the math tells you that. So as long as you stay in that square and you're disciplined, you're probably going to make money. Does that mean you can't lose? Nope, you can still lose. And that's just part of the variance. I mean, there is a wide ranging, guys, you could literally roll whatever number it is or whatever you're playing against. You could literally roll that number 5 times in a row and it could decimate your bankroll. You could do that. Or the next day you could go there and never see the number. You could never have that problem. Does that mean that one day you were lucky and one day you were unlucky. I guess you could look at it like that. But all it means, leaving when ahead is winning. That is exactly right. Yep. Yeah. One thing you're saying there, you're right. You don't win until you leave. Even cashing your chip into cash at the cashier's cage, if you're still in the casino, you haven't won yet, because you can easily pull that money back out and stick it on something. So until you're at home or you're in your car or something with your cash, you haven't won. Guys, profit goals. Profit goals are discipline though. So it still comes down to discipline, but have profit goals, guys, and stick to them. Stick to them religiously. If you stick to your profit goals, you're going to be more successful. And guys, don't make outrageous profit goals. Make small goals and big dreams. Make small goals and big dreams is a great method, okay? So obviously, what I'm saying is, if you have a goal of 20%, okay, so boom, you make your 20%. And let's say you get a good roll, and so you actually made like 28%, all right? So take that 8% and turn that into your dream, all right? Keep your 20% you won. Put that up. You're done with that. But that other 8%, play with that. See if you can get your dream out of that, But that 20%, man, that's bread and butter. That's beans and meat. That's how you eat. You don't want to give that back. Keep your money. When they give you their money because of the work you put in, keep it. Don't give it back. Yeah, superstitions are funny in craps. Superstitions are very confirmation bias. Like when the dice go off the table and people turn their bets off, and I'm guilty of this. I do it too. And they turn their bets off and that 7 comes. Oh yeah, that's confirmation bias all day right there. Oh, I knew that was coming. What most likely happened is the 6th or 7th roll, and it was coming either way. So, but yeah, I definitely, I know that one. I've been there. Or there's some other superstitions too, like when they rub their hands all around the dice and bounce them 3 times. It's bad luck to be superstitious. I love that. Well, you guys are coming up with all kinds of t-shirts today. Hello, Craps fan. Yeah, so I'm just on here ranting about biases, confirmation bias, recency bias, and preaching discipline. Same dice. That's right. Yeah. Hey, I'm not a same dice guy, and people will get mad at me if I throw one off the table or whatever. I just give me them. I don't care what they. And I always tell them this. I'm like, guys, I have like 200 dice at home. I throw them all. I was like, they're all the same. So it's all same dice. But I definitely, I've had some people get pissed at me for that. Like when I don't get the same dice and I'll throw a 7, right? I've probably thrown it 7 times. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that you can't turn off. That, some of these electronic table rules and different things, and these different websites that are coming out with their live craps or whatever thing, some of them are getting very, the rules are getting really tricky. Like the not being able to turn off stuff. And all that. And that's kind of tricky rules, man. I mean, you're taking away a whole bunch of the advantage to the craps players if you can't manipulate your bets in those fashions. That's hilarious. Right. Yeah, That stuff is funny. Like, I mean, yeah, I haven't played on the electronic tables. I'm just, everyone else has. You know, one of the things that I think is funny too is on the same dice thing or throwing it off the table. Like, for example, when only one dice goes off the table, and the other dice on the table was, let's say it was a 5, all right? Now, I've had people say, well, there was a 5 on that dice, so it's definitely going to be over 6 or higher, you know, because we just saw a 5, so it's like they look at it like that roll is going to repeat itself. I've seen that too, and I'm just like, what? like where do you get that from? But so I've actually seen that, like, oh yeah, that was a 5. So, and I've seen them actually adjust their bets to that, and I'm like, oh, okay. But I mean, it is play how you want. I mean, whatever makes you feel comfortable. That's a big part of it too, is feeling comfortable at the table. If you're not comfortable, you shouldn't be gambling. Our guys, you know, the guys up there sweating their rent money. Don't do that. Just pay your rent, you know. You know, guys, I fully believe that they're going to go to electronic tables all over eventually. I think that felted tables will be like a novelty eventually. A few places will have them, and that's it. And the reason I say that is because it's just the labor cost is so much lower. And you take away a bunch of the ways for cheating. I mean, so it's just, it makes sense that that's what's going to happen. Yeah, they'll be all high limit tables, you're right. But, and guys, that may be a while. It may be 10 years away. I'm not sure, but I know that those electronic tables are showing up more and more and more. And those stadium craps, bubble craps are showing up everywhere. You know, because they can put roulette, craps, and blackjack all on one big stadium machine and have 25, 30 people at it, all playing one thing at one time with no dealers. And so, I mean, that's the kind of stuff they're going to go to. It's labor costs. Nice. 75 minimum. Damn, they must not want y'all to play craps. 75 minimum is such a lame number too, because 75, no one bets 75 except for on the 5 and 9. No one bets 75. That's the only bets that ever get $75. Unless you're hopping the Reds or something for 25 a piece, but you know, I know a lot of players. I mean, I don't, yeah, the electronic games, they have the built-in slot machine house edge. So, you know, that's one of the things is that any bubble craps machine, guys, is considered a slot machine, which means that they can essentially make it like 14%. So, I don't know how they manipulate it in that fashion, but they can. So, I mean, because it's in their rules. It's in, you know, the state or whatever it is, their gambling commission sets. So, if they consider it a slot machine, then they can adjust that to 14%. Now, however they do that, I don't know. I highly doubt that they're manipulating the dice in them. They could be. I don't play very much bubble craps, so... But I just have my doubts that they're doing that. But they can manipulate the payout if they're going to do 14%. So, I mean, again, they're slot machines. So, slot machines are what they are. Anyways, guys, I'm at the little convenience store here. I need to grab some drinks before I go into work. Thank you guys for riding here with me. And, yeah, fun chat. Thank you for all the math guys showing up. You guys are awesome. Appreciate it. And you guys have a great day.